This city was not built for people. It was built to operate. Before anyone lived here, the system was already complete. Space was measured, movement was planned, lives were expected to adapt. From a distance, everything looks calm, ordered, inevitable. That calm is the lie. To understand 19th century New York, you cannot begin on the street. Streets hide pressure, buildings hide crowding, maps hide consequence. You must start above, where the city first convinces itself that everything is under control. From there, New York appears finished before it breathes. Rivers behave like borders, streets read like instructions. This view creates belief that order came first. But pressure was designed early. Money shaped space, space compressed lives. Thanks to AI reconstruction, we descend through these layers, from aerial order to financial corridors, to streets that absorb the cost, and reveals how the machine demanded compliance long before anyone arrived there. This city appears finished before anyone is allowed to enter it. From above, 19th century New York does not feel discovered or negotiated. It feels decided. The island is already filled, already measured, already claimed. Rivers become borders. Streets align with purpose. Docks repeat with industrial certainty. Nothing here suggests hesitation. The city does not wait to be inhabited. It waits to be used. This aerial calm is the first deception, and it is a dangerous one. It promises coherence. It implies control. It tells the viewer that this place knows exactly what it is doing. But cities do not arrange themselves for people. They arrange themselves for movement. From this height, New York resembles a diagram rather than a settlement. Cargo flows in predictable arcs. Ships queue with discipline. Neighborhoods cluster not by community, but by function. Warehouses compress against water. Residences retreat inward. Every structure exists in relation to circulation. Movement precedes meaning. The city functions before it breathes. Human presence is implied, not required. People appear as scale references, not agents. They confirm size, not purpose. This way of seeing matters because it reverses causality. The city does not grow because people arrive. People arrive because the city has already prepared a place for their labor. Space is allocated before lives unfold within it. Paths are drawn before footsteps accumulate. This is not organic growth. It is premeditation, and once a city is imagined as a system, everything inside it must behave like a component. Distance smooths friction. From above, congestion becomes density. Exploitation becomes efficiency. Overcrowding reads as productivity. The map absorbs pressure without complaint. It cannot show exhaustion. It cannot register breath. It cannot feel the cost of acceleration. This is why aerial order is never neutral. It hides consequence behind geometry. And yet, this perspective becomes irresistible. Because if the city can be seen as a machine, it can be optimized, improved, accelerated, controlled. Once this logic takes hold, the next question is inevitable. Where does power sit inside the mechanism? It is from this elevated certainty that later suffering becomes invisible. Plans cannot register fatigue, lines cannot record hunger, systems ignore breath. When design replaces negotiation, adjustment disappears. The city assumes compliance instead of consent. Those who fail to adapt are not resisted. They are sorted. Pressure moves downward, outward, inward, until it settles where space is cheapest and voices are weakest. The machine does not hate. It simply continues. Its logic remains intact, while consequences accumulate beyond view, waiting for someone to finally look down and ask why it matters. The answer waits on a narrow street below, a street where time is priced, space is traded, and movement is no longer free. Power in 19th century New York does not announce itself with statues or grand avenues. It concentrates quietly in corridors where minutes matter more than morals. Wall Street is not wide. It does not impress by scale. It tightens. It compresses. It trains bodies to move quickly and think narrowly. Here, time is measured in advantage. Space is measured in cost. The street teaches the city how to value speed. Money does not simply circulate here. It reorganizes reality. On Wall Street, exchange becomes habit. Habit becomes infrastructure. Infrastructure becomes destiny. Buildings climb not for beauty, but for yield. Streets narrow because proximity accelerates deals. Density is not a failure of planning, it is the plan. The closer bodies are forced together, the faster value moves. What looks chaotic at ground level is precise from a financial perspective. Disorder is simply efficiency experienced by those who cannot afford distance. This is where the city's machine gains a motor, because once profit defines success, the city must adapt to protect it. Circulation is prioritized over rest. Visibility is rewarded. Stagnation is punished. Space that does not produce is reclassified as waste. And waste, in an efficient system, must be relocated, pushed outward, compressed, forgotten. This logic spreads beyond the street itself. Housing begins to mirror markets. Neighborhoods specialize. Rents rise not to improve living conditions, but to regulate access. Proximity becomes privilege. Distance becomes penalty. The city learns to price inconvenience and reward acceleration. Movement turns habitual. People adjust their lives to rhythms they did not choose. Those who fall behind are not chased. They are bypassed. Wall Street does not invent inequality. It standardizes it. By converting time into currency and space into assets, the city builds a hierarchy that feels natural because it functions smoothly. Decisions made here appear abstract, yet they harden quickly into physical form. Narrow streets, crowded rooms, overworked bodies. Invisible thresholds determine who belongs where and for how long. The market does not need to be cruel, it only needs to remain consistent. Consistency, however, generates pressure, because every system optimized for flow must decide where friction belongs. Resistance cannot be eliminated, it can only be relocated. The pressure produced in financial corridors does not disappear, it travels, it settles. It accumulates in districts never designed to absorb it. Places where space is cheapest, where regulation lags, where survival replaces choice. Those places begin as margins. They end as containers. The city continues to function, profit continues to move. But beneath the surface, lives are being stacked, sorted, and stored. And when space finally fails, the system does not slow. It looks elsewhere for capacity. That elsewhere already exists, and it has a name. Every efficient system produces overflow. In 19th century New York, that overflow acquires an address. 5 Points is not an accident of neglect or a failure of governance. It is a destination, a place where density is permitted because it is useful, where lives are compressed because space elsewhere must remain profitable. The city does not malfunction here. It performs exactly as designed. In these streets, opportunity collapses into routine survival. Rooms subdivide again and again. Beds rotate between shifts. Air thickens. Light fades. Disease moves faster than assistance. Poverty blurs into criminality because the city no longer distinguishes between need and threat. Visibility becomes liability. To be seen is to be classified. To be classified is to be controlled. Order does not arrive as support. It arrives as containment. Mulberry Street extends the same logic. Immigration feeds the machine with precision. Ships deliver labor as reliably as cargo. Bodies are absorbed efficiently, but relief is not distributed with the same urgency. Housing becomes storage. Community becomes density management. Reform trails far behind necessity. Surveillance arrives first. The city learns to manage people the way it manages volume. What happens here is not chaos, it is compression. These districts resolve the promises made elsewhere: the aerial calm, the financial efficiency, the optimized circulation. All of it settles here, where space fails and bodies absorb the remainder. The city does not collapse under this weight. It endures. But endurance is not neutral. It is measured in shortened lives, regulated suffering, normalized exhaustion. Stability is achieved by lowering expectations until survival counts as success. From above, nothing appears broken. From financial corridors, nothing appears urgent. The system continues to move. It always does. What changes is who carries the burden of its momentum. Pressure is not shared evenly. It descends, it concentrates, it stays. 5 Points and Mulberry Street are not exceptions to the city's story. They are its proof. They reveal the cost of treating space as asset and people as variables. When growth becomes the primary virtue, compassion becomes inefficient. When efficiency becomes moral, suffering becomes administrative. This is the final deception of the 19th century city. Survival is mistaken for progress. Function is mistaken for justice. Movement is mistaken for life. The machine does not require cruelty. It requires compliance. And compliance is easier to maintain when exhaustion leaves little room for resistance. New York does not destroy its people. It uses them. And once the system is visible, the question is no longer how the city grew, or even who it benefited. The question is whether growth itself was ever meant to serve those inside it, or whether the city was always preparing to outgrow it.